what's up, guys? We're just letting you know what we're up to today. We're actually heading out to Belleville, Michigan on a new project. So we're actually taking a look at another Porsche 944 this time again. This one in particular is a 1985.5 or 1985 and a half. This is the mid-year rework when they actually changed the interior to the oval body shape. This gentleman actually has two Porsches for sale. One without an engine and one with an engine. We're interested in the one with an engine. It's a little rough on the outside, which, as you know from my previous videos, I'm not very much concerned with. And I'm looking to go as low as possible. Right now, the 944 market isn't good enough to really spend big bucks on. So things that I'm looking for is kind of like the projects I had in the past, paying $1,000 or under if possible, and buying something that, you know, we can turn around and possibly flip. Still judging the market, I want to just in any instance be able to still pull $3,000, if not more, of course, and just have a project for some content. I'm with my buddy here. And one thing to keep in mind, when you're going to look at an older car, you're trying to haggle a deal for something cheap, don't show up in your nicest car. It's going to kind of mess you up a little bit. So we're in one of his daily commuters, his classic, his road slut, as to say.
1993 Volvo 240.
Yep, 240, which is still doing its thing. Actually riding pretty good. Still sounds pretty good. It's still smooth, just like it was back in the day when I had my 1979 Canary Yellow 244 DL. So yeah, we're going to take a look at this. This is going to be a joint project between the two of us. For the first time, we're going to see how it goes. Mainly just a couple of pointers if you're ever thinking about purchasing one of these vehicles, or what I do. Number one, I always want to be able to drive off with the vehicle. Why? Because a person that says there's only one thing running or one thing that's causing a problem usually isn't exactly true. Okay, usually there's something else going on with the vehicle, and you can't tell. But if you can start it, you can drive it, you can push in the clutch, you can feel that the hydraulic is working, you can go through the synchros, then you know some of your major costs can be avoided initially. Another thing, always remember your timing belt. As soon as you get back, if you do decide to buy it, change the timing belt. You're dealing with an interference engine, so if that timing belt goes, the valves actually inhabit the same space as the piston head, and it'll blow, which will cause you to have a new engine. So anyway, this is just a quick video, an update. We'll get back to you when we have more information. So guys, how did things turn out? Well, I just got back home from checking out that 944, and there was definitely some things to pay attention to, and it was a little bit of a few things that maybe caused me to be outside my comfort zone. Even so, it doesn't mean the project is a no by any means, but we definitely did agree to a price. So just give you an idea of what basically happened. Went there, excellent gentleman I met there. Again, we were looking at a 1985.5 Porsche 944. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the car started, so we sprayed some starter fluid into actually removed the J-boot a little bit into the throttle body, sprayed it directly in there. The car sounded like it wanted to start, but there was also another issue. The battery was pretty much dead. We didn't have any cold crank amps. In fact, the battery was totally dead. But when we actually ran some jumper cables from my friend's Volvo 240 to it, revving the engine a little bit, we're able to get some turnover just fine, but just not enough, not that right sound where, you know, the car was really feeling like it had enough to get started. Usually you hear for a little skip like a and it was just a little bit of hair slow. So that was definitely one issue that was going on. Another issue that we ran into was the clutch pedal was all the way at the floor. So as you know, when that happens on a running car, it can be due to the fact that, number one, the clutch and brake system hasn't been bled properly and there's air in the system. And that could very well be. But again, we're dealing with a car that can't necessarily start. I can't drive it. I can't feel the clutch. Easily, this car could have a clutch that needs to be replaced. And the looks of the car is pretty rough on the outside. And the interior is pretty rough too. So, you know, spending, what, $600 for a clutch, something like that I wouldn't do myself, because you got to drop the cross member at the bottom, I believe. You know, you're looking at easily $1,500 worth of work, possibly maybe a little less, but $1,500 in money. And is that car worth that much? No. In the condition it's in, it's probably worth running, driving away, maybe $1,000 to $1,500. There's a lot of on the car. There was a lot of scoring in the paint, the interior. Most of it was there, but you had cracks along the dashboard. Nothing that says something that's unique or is in good condition that would sell that well. So that's the big issue. Besides that, so it could be anything from the hydraulic clutch to the clutch needs to be replaced. You have the fuel system delivery issue too, which from what I understand is more than likely a DME relay issue. It could be the DME altogether because I couldn't start it. Usually the DME relay is where you spray starter fluid into the intake. The car will then start up and run. That's when we know it's a DME, but because we couldn't get it started, we don't know, even if we sprayed in there, if it will continue to run. And a DME is not necessarily cheap. So why am I interested in this car still? Well, number one, I've had the very first one, Porsche, the 944 I had was a 1983. It ran great. It bought it for $2,500, but I ended up having an oil issue, and the car stopped getting oil. The bottom of the crank seized up, locked up, and then pretty much everything went from there. As I deteriorated, broke down the engine, there was no such issue with the timing belt going, and there was no bent valves. The head was fine. It's just that the bottom camshaft there, not the camshaft, but the crankshaft, the bearings just totally got burned up and were gone. So that caused the end of that car. That was my first experience. Second car I bought for cheap. That was the $850 project that you saw that initiated this channel. That car went really well. I ended up putting it in a ditch, fixed it, sold it. That went pretty well. And so now I'm looking at my third one. I've always wanted the 85.5 because that's right in the middle of the year. They switched the interior. You got rid of the 3 pods, 1, 2, 3, and the 924 traditional looking interior. And you actually went to the more ovular, they call it the oval shape. In the mid-year, they made this change. And I remember sitting in an oval shape 944 years and years ago when I was like 19 years old. And this one I sat in, even though it was in rough condition, it felt much, much more mature than the earlier version. So it's still an interest. So my partner and I, we talked about it, and we still have a measure of interest, but at very, very low number. We were able to contact the guy back. He seems interested. So, as we go on a little bit and we actually get the car here, I'll go ahead and reveal what price we got the car at, but it's pretty low because you got to think about it. When you're going into these type of things, you have to think about all your costs. And so the way that I would do it is, number one, I usually would always get a car that's running that I can drive and to have that assurance before doing it. But if not, I want to tally up the possible issues and the costs associated to get the car running. And if those exceed what the car is worth just running in the condition, then it's a no-go. So as I'm looking at it, I see definitely the hydraulic clutch is a $83 piece, but it could probably be the hydraulic clutch and also the master cylinder or the master slave. And so I'm looking at about $200 in parts there. That project I could do by myself. The master slave sits right underneath the starter motor. You just remove the starter motor off the side. It's actually right above it, excuse me, if you're looking from underneath the car. It sits right there. That's something that isn't too difficult to do. And also the hydraulic clutch can be accomplished. Usually you have to remove the interior seat, give yourself more access, and go to it. Again, it could be something as simple as bleeding the air out the system to get it working, because the guy said it was working. You got to take it at, hopefully, that is true. So we're looking at $200 there. We're looking at $140 or so for a new battery. Okay, so we're at $340. What else? The DME relay. So wait, before we say DME relay, we're at $340. I'm going to get a new belt. I'm going to round up and say $400. Okay, because I'm going to get that belt right away, get it on there, make sure that we don't have a problem there. So $400 we're looking at. Car hasn't ran in a while. We're going to do some oil changes and stuff like that. Get a new filter in there. I'm going to round it up another $54.50. Then we have to approach the DME and see what that is. Now, that DME, I'm just going to go out there and say I can get another DME totally, regardless of the switch, for another $250. So we're at $455. We're looking at $700. Okay. So for what I'm paying for it, if I said this is worth $1,000 to $1,500 car, and I'm going to spend $700, I can't be over that $1,000 to $1,500 mark. I'm not going to make my money. Positives: car has good tires on it, so that's not something I have to worry about. Also, the car turns over, so I know that the timing belt hasn't gone and caused an interference or a timing issue between the piston heads and the valves, because it's turning over, and when usually that goes and the valve is sitting down, the piston head, it locks up, so it won't even turn over properly. So I know that that's good. And then again, the price and the availability. So we're going to go ahead and probably move forward with this project. I'm looking at Friday, possibly go ahead and picking up the car, or having the car sent here. And in the first week's time frame, the main focus is to get the car up and running, so I can move it out of my garage and in my garage and possibly over to a storage unit. So these are just some things I want to express and explain this process. So in case you're out there looking for a car, maybe it's not a Porsche necessarily, maybe it's a 240Z or a 300Z, and you're on a very limited budget, because we want to stay small in this case. Like I stated before, the 944 budget is not the 944 what it's worth or what it's going for now. The market is so fluctuating. I mean, I just saw a guy just today or yesterday put up a car for $6,100. It can sell, it may not. And then at the same time, you'll have good examples willing to go as low as $3,000. You kind of don't know. So this is the reason why I'm not interested in spending more money for a 944 if I'm going to flip it, because the market is too volatile. So I'll keep you guys updated, and let me know what you think. Please put some comments down below if you want to see any other type of content. But I'm getting back to the Porsche line. Okay, appreciate it, guys.